What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. It has been a pretty busy week in Dan's world for the Washington Commanders in the last 2 weeks. Again, I missed last week because I just had a lot of schoolwork, so I didn't record a podcast last week. But we have a lot to talk about in these last 2 weeks. Starting things off with the Commanders franchise tagging Daron Payne. Then we're going to go into some more pre-free agency moves that the Washington Commanders have made to prepare themselves for this upcoming free agency, which starts next week. Also, Jeff Bezos has hired a firm, Allen Company, for a possible bid on the Washington Commanders. So we're going to get into that as well. And then to cap things off, the NFL Scouting Combine was this weekend. I'm recording this on a Sunday. We've got offensive tackle and running back workouts going on right now. We've got some guys really shining throughout the weekend, such as Anthony Richardson. But I'll get more into that a little bit later. And then to cap things off, of course, we've got the weekly mock draft. That's going to be a fun one as well. So let's just start with Daron Payne because the big guy is back. It was bound to happen. The Commanders have franchise tagged officially Daron Payne. It's going to cost him $18.9 million for 2023, fully guaranteed. Now, there's a lot of questions still. Will we get a long-term extension with him, or will we have to trade him at some point this offseason? And I will think, or at least I'm saying, I think that trading Daron Payne is very possible this offseason, especially since the Commanders last offseason during the draft last year selected Fedarian Mathis with their second-round pick. Of course, he tore his ACL in week one. It's basically going to be like a redshirt freshman year for the 2023 season for Fedarian Mathis in the NFL. So my question is, if you have Mathis, if you spent that draft capital, that second-round pick on Fedarian Mathis, what's the point of having Daron Payne? Because Fedarian Mathis is a great run stopper, just like Daron Payne was. And Daron Payne, I mean, still, he showed us in the 2022 season that he showed us that he's really like another pass rusher as well. He had, I can't remember the exact number. I want to say it's 9.5, but I just can't remember the exact number right now. I think he has somewhere around 9.5 sacks as an interior defensive lineman, one of the most sacks for an interior defensive lineman last season. So he had a very productive year, both in the run game or run defense and in the pass rush as well. So there's still going to be a lot of questions about Daron Payne and what Washington should do. If I'm Washington right now, it's a little bit of a hot take. I don't really want to go into a lot of what my thoughts are about this right now. I do want to spend almost an entire episode about this one topic. But in my opinion, I think we should sign Daron Payne on a long-term contract. This offseason, we pick up Montez Sweat's fifth-year option. And also this offseason, we trade away Chase Young. Now, that is a very hot take. That's what I would do as things stand right now. It's a pretty hot take. I will probably, if you guys want me to go more in depth on my thought process through that, I will probably do that in a later episode. But that is my take right now, and I'd keep Daron Payne on that long-term deal, and then you still have Fedarian Mathis, even though he might not be worth a second-round pick. You have him in that rotation, so Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne, in case of injury or just in the rotation in general, have Fedarian Mathis, a really solid run stopper, hopefully, that you can plug and play in Washington for next season. Hopefully, Mathis can show us that he can be a solid inside defensive lineman for the next few years in that rotation of backing up Jonathan Allen and backing up Daron Payne. So we'll see what happens there. Some more free agency or pre-free agency moves that Washington has officially done. The first one was releasing Carson Wentz. Now, this Carson Wentz time in Washington, very disappointing to say the least. It's been another year of of trading for a veteran quarterback and it not working out after one season. This move saves about, I think it's just under $30 million in cap space, which is pretty big because Carson Wentz was not worth what we paid him this offseason. So I think I saw this one stat. It's like of the 4-year, $160 million or 4-year, it was in the high 100 millions. In terms of money that Carson Wentz signed in his extension with Philadelphia, he still got paid like 106 million of it or 110 million of it, which is absolutely crazy. He is set for life. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Will he retire from the NFL? Will he take a year off? Because he and his family has gone through a lot, from Philadelphia to Indianapolis for a year, to Washington for a year, and now possibly somewhere else. I mean, if I'm him, I would probably be pretty happy with that 106 million or so that he's gotten so far in guaranteed money from that one contract. So if I'm Carson Wentz, I'm calling it a career. I mean, it was pretty successful. Almost won an MVP before tearing her ACL in 2017. I want to say 2017. So yeah, but yeah, Carson Wentz's time in Washington not great. Can still respect him though, and he is one of the greatest quarterbacks in terms. If you take every single quarterback who's ever played the game, his peak was definitely as well. He definitely peaked as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL and possibly the best quarterback in the NFL in that 2017 season. So yeah, we released him to save $30 million, and then we also released the safety Bobby McCain, which is saving $4.42 million, which is another great release. Kind of really shows what Washington wants to do at the safety position. We've got Derek Forrest, we've got Cam Curl. One of the big priorities Washington has to have this offseason is re-signing Cam Curl, who is due to be a free agent in that 2024 offseason. So I'd love to see him back on a long-term deal. Uh, in terms of Derek Forrest, we still have some years, but Bobby McCain, he didn't really fill that Buffalo nickel role that Ron Rivera likes to have, the role that Landon Collins had when he was in Washington for the 2021 season. I want to say some 2021 season. I want to say so. Yeah, with Landon Collins gone, we don't really have a Buffalo nickel role. Bobby McCain didn't really fill it, so that could be something that Washington looks for in the draft in terms of a safety. Again, we also have Percy Butler, who we drafted in the 4th round last year, and he could possibly fill that Buffalo nickel role. We'll have to wait and see, but I think another safety could definitely be in the mix for Washington in terms of being like a safety linebacker hybrid. So yeah, we cut Carson Wentz, we cut Bobby McCain. We also extended 4 different players: Nathan Gary, the linebacker, on a 1-year contract; David Mayo on a 1-year contract; Roger Wildgoose on a 1-year contract, and Milo Eifler on a 1-year contract. Now, we've had 3 of those being linebackers, all 4 of those being on the defensive side, and none of them were the name Cole Holcomb, who is still set to be a free agent this upcoming offseason. Now, I think we could really get Cole Holcomb, especially since he had a season-ending injury about halfway through the year last year, on a pretty cheap contract. His 2021 season was really good. He was a clear best linebacker on the team. Bringing back Cole Holcomb is also should be a priority within the next week, and bringing him in on a long-term deal, at least 2 years, because especially with Jamin Davis still developing, I think Cole Holcomb could be a really solid piece in the linebacker core. And if we don't bring him back, this linebacker core is going to be very, very weak. So I expect Washington to bring him back. I think they will. They've already met with his representatives. But Cole Holcomb being back in a Washington Commanders uniform next year is something that I would have high on my priority list for this offseason. The Commanders in general have about $15 million to spend in free agency for this upcoming offseason. This already takes out the money that will be for the upcoming draft class, which I think total we have like 20 million or 21 million around there. But a lot of it is going for the draft class for this upcoming offseason. So we have about $15 million to spend in free agency. There's definitely some guys that I'm looking at maybe that we could bring in, but I really don't expect any big free agent acquisitions. Ron Rivera has just never really done that in Washington for the first few years of his tenure in Washington. So I don't really expect him to bring any big names this offseason. One of the big things was keeping the guys you already have, like Daron Payne and Cole Holcomb. So that'll be something to watch. For the 2023 season, the Commanders have $17 million in dead money, and $9 million of those $17 million goes to William Jackson. So just that William Jackson contract is looking worse and worse, pretty much for that 2023 season. So again, you traded him to the Steelers for like a bag of chips, and then the Steelers, who could possibly cut William Jackson and so maybe bring him back on a cheaper deal for this upcoming year, because I think he's out of guaranteed. Like, the Steelers don't have to pay him any guaranteed money for 2023, so we still do though. So $9 million for William Jackson, $5 million of it is for Landon Collins, and $2.28 million of it is from Bobby McCain. So again, $17 million only is not the worst thing. William Jackson, though, with that $9 million is definitely pretty bad, but $17 million in dead money is not the worst thing for Washington. All right, moving on to another Commanders or possible Commanders owner update. Jeff Bezos has hired Allen Company for a possible bid on the Commanders. Now, Dan Snyder, in my opinion, for the last few weeks has gone really, really quiet. around him and what he has been saying, or what people have been saying about him, because it's really looking like, in my opinion, Daniel Snyder will sell the team before the 2023 NFL season. So I'm excited about that. Jeff Bezos hiring Allen Company. I really think that he is going to make a bid at some point on the Washington Commanders. Reporter Albert Breer said that Bezos is as interested in purchasing the Seattle Seahawks as he is in the Washington Commanders. Again, the Seahawks, they have an entire owner situation going on over there. But I believe with the Seahawks owner doesn't even want to own the team anymore. So because it was like inherited. But yeah, so I don't know how I feel about that. Jeff Bezos is interested in purchasing the Seahawks as the Commanders, but that is not great. If it does, that'd be a wild 180. I would say, if he does end up purchasing the Seahawks and not the Washington Commanders, because again, Amazon, really, there's a lot of Amazon stuff and around DC, around the DMV, and same with Jeff Bezos being from this area, I'm pretty sure. So that'd be a pretty big 180. But I think he's really going to purchase the Commanders, or maybe it'll be a different owner. A lot of NFL owners right now are pushing for Jeff Bezos to make a bid on the team. There have also been a lot of reports about Snyder stealing money from the Commanders. There was that ESPN report. I forgot who wrote it, but he like he he took $4 million from the team to put the team's logo on his plane, which is just so stupid. But I don't even know how that works. He's just taking a lot of money from the team and giving it to himself, basically. He's also been taking out a lot of unknown loans for the team without telling his minority owners back in 2020. So again, not really being any trustworthy. He's not really helping himself with these new reports. So Snyder, again, I already mentioned this, has really gone quiet, I feel, over the last few weeks, which is hopefully good and hopefully means that he will sell the team at some point. We've got NFL league meetings in March, and we've got another one in May. It's looking like that Snyder's going to sell the team by the May one. I don't think it'll happen by the March one, but by the May one. Oh, I forgot to mention, when I was talking about Daron Payne, Payne won't get an extension if they were to get a long-term extension until a new owner, or basically you can just look at this for any player that's due like a long-term extension that's going to cost Snyder a lot of money. Snyder's not going to give them that extension, especially if he's on the brink of selling the team, because these long-term contracts, they have a lot of guaranteed money at the signing, a big signing bonus for a lot of them, like Cam Curl and Daron Payne, if we were to sign them to long-term contracts. So I wouldn't expect Snyder to give these guys long-term contracts if he's planning on selling the team, because I would wait for a new owner to then buy the team and then give these key players on this team some pretty big contracts. So yeah, I wouldn't expect a new deal for Daron Payne or Cam Curl to be done soon, as long as Snyder is still the owner. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Jeff Bezos, it's looking pretty big that he's going to place a bid on the Washington Commanders pretty soon. All right, moving on to the NFL Scouting Combine. It took place from Tuesday to Sunday last week. Tuesday and Wednesday were pretty much press conferences for our head coaches and GMs, and then Thursday through Sunday were interviews from players and also workouts from players as well. Some guys that I had my eye on and completely rose from possibly being a day 2 pick to solidifying themselves as a day 1 or solidifying themselves as a top 10 pick. Of course, we got to look at Anthony Richardson, the Florida quarterback. As a Florida fan, I love to see this. And I knew it was coming too. Anthony Richardson testing in the 100th percentile in terms of athletic score for quarterbacks. And also, he ran a 4.4340, first of all. He broke the record for quarterback at the combine for vertical jump and broad jump. So you love to see it if you're a Florida fan. But yeah, he's going to go, in my opinion, he's going to go top 5. I think a team either trades up for him, like the Lions or the Panthers. I don't think he gets past the Lions at number 7. Either the Panthers trade up for him into the top 5. Maybe the Seahawks take him at number 5. But I don't think he gets past the Lions at number 7, which is pretty cool to see as a Florida fan. Some other guys that stood out to me: Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. He's probably going to be my new wide receiver 1. I got to look back at his 2021 tape a little bit more, but he'll probably end up being my wide receiver 1. As of now, I'll give you guys a little bit of sneak peek at my rankings. But as of now, I had Jordan Addison. I haven't watched Zay Flowers yet because I want to watch Zay Flowers, but I'm waiting for more film or more 2022 film to come out for him, which I believe I'm getting that next week. So that will be a fun prospect to watch. But as of now, I had Jordan Addison and then Jackson Smith-Njigba as my wide receiver 2. I had JSN as a second round value or second round talent, and then Jordan Addison as like a mid to late first round talent. So Addison did not really impress me either at the combine. He ran a 4.49 40-yard dash, which again, the 40-yard dash isn't everything, but I'd expect him to run a little bit faster than that. Same with Jalen Hyatt, who ran a pretty slow 40-yard dash. He was expected to probably get into the 4.2s maybe, or low 4.3s. He ran a 4.44, I think, or 4.43. It was somewhere around there. Not great from him. And yeah, so Jackson Smith-Njigba, if his 2021 tape is as good as people say it is, he'll probably end up being my wide receiver 1 before I watch Zay Flowers. So yeah, that's it for the wide receivers. Nolan Smith, the edge rusher out of Georgia, I watched him as well after the performance that he had on Thursday at the NFL Combine. I gave him a, what did I give? I think I gave him a early second round grade or early to mid second round grade. So I don't think he's worth a first round. Yeah, I don't think he's a first round talent as a lot of people are saying, but he's still pretty good. Very smart player. And I expect him to go probably late day 1. I think a lot of NFL teams are going to fall in love with him. I'm just not as high on him as a lot of the other guys. I think his size is still something that really worries me. And another guy, probably one of my favorite prospects in this upcoming draft. I don't know if I mentioned him on here before, but Christian Gonzalez put on a show on Friday. One of the best performances from any player at the combine. I mean, his athleticism, in my opinion, he's cornerback 1. I haven't watched Devin Witherspoon yet, but I don't know how Devin Witherspoon is going to match up against Christian Gonzalez, because Gonzalez to me is a top 5 talent in this draft. I think I have him right now number 5 or maybe number 6, but he's a top 5 talent in this draft. And I'm really, if he falls to us at number 16, I'm going to be over the moon, because Christian Gonzalez, I expect him after the performance of the combine to go top 8, top 10, probably lock himself in there as a top 10 pick. But if he falls to us at number 16, I'm sprinting up to the podium myself to draft Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. So those were my risers, or those were my big time risers at the NFL Scouting Combine. And a lot of the followers, I kind of already mentioned it, but a lot of the top wide receivers like Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson, Tyler Scott as well, who could have been a like a steal, maybe early day 3 out of Cincinnati. He did not impress me as well. And then Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame, consensusly, or a lot of people have him as the consensus number 1 tight end in this upcoming draft class. He didn't really impress me at all during his testing and during the drills. So those are some guys that I did not really like, and I think fell in draft stock over the course of the NFL Scouting Combine. All right, and continuing the theme here of the NFL draft, let's do one more weekly mock draft. I'm going to go through this one pretty quickly. But round 1, I picked up Joey Porter Jr. I think he's a pretty solid cornerback. I haven't really watched him yet, but from what I'm hearing, at number 16, that would be a pretty big steal for the Washington Commanders. Some other guys on the board were Deontay Banks, Broderick Jones, and Michael Mayer. I went ahead and selected Joey Porter Jr. because I feel like getting a true cornerback 1, which I'm pretty sure Gonzalez, Witherspoon, and Porter, again, can't 100% confirm on Witherspoon and Porter, but they're probably going to be an elite cornerback 1 in the NFL, or have the upside of being an elite cornerback 1 in the NFL. So I went ahead and selected Joey Porter Jr. with the first overall, not the first overall pick, with the first overall select, so not first overall selection. Sorry, the first round pick for the Commanders at the 16th overall. So that's my round 1 pick. And then at round 2 at like 43 or 47 or something like that, I selected DeJuan Jones. This man is massive. He came in at 6'8". He had a huge wingspan. This guy is like a big house, but he's like a mansion, because selecting my round 2, I think, is great value. He's not the most polished offensive lineman in this upcoming draft, but I think DeJuan Jones could definitely, he's a little bit of a project, but the upside is crazy. And getting him on day 2 would be I'd be so happy with that pick. Some other guys that were on the board, again, Deontay Banks was still on the board, which I definitely considered if I didn't select Joey Porter Jr. in that first round and I went with like a guy like Broderick Jones or someone like that or Michael Mayer, I definitely would go Deontay Banks over DeJuan Jones. But since I already got Joey Porter Jr., there's no point. Then Deion Henley, the linebacker out of Washington State, was also on the board. Luke Weipler, the center out of Ohio State, and John Michael Schmitz, the center out of Minnesota. John Michael Schmitz was another guy that I highly considered. It was probably down between DeJuan Jones and John Michael Schmitz in that scenario. With the round 3 pick, I selected Ivan Pace Jr., the linebacker out of Cincinnati. Some other guys that I strongly considered: DeMarvin Overshown, the linebacker out of Texas; Sidney Brown, the safety out of Illinois, has a possible Buffalo nickel, like I was talking about before. And then Sam Laporta, the tight end out of Iowa, were some other guys that I looked at. With my round 4 selection, I selected Olu Oluwatimi, the center out of Michigan. Some other guys I took a look at was Owen Papoi or something like that, and then DJ Turner and Carl Brooks. Those were some other guys that I strongly considered, but that one was pretty easy. I went with Oluwatimi because we really need some help on that inside offensive line with those guards in the center. So I think that was a pretty easy selection there. With the 5th round pick, I went with Maryland cornerback Jacorian Bennett to boost the secondary, which, again, there's so much value in the secondary, and especially at the cornerback position in this draft. I feel like Washington needs to take 2. Even though they might not need it, taking 2 cornerbacks, you can get so much value in round 5 and round 4. Taking one of the cornerbacks, if you don't get a cornerback in round 1, you have to take one on day 2, or you have to take one early day 3 because there's so much value there. Same with the tight end position too, and I'll get to that in a second. But I went with Jacorian Bennett. Some other guys on the board were Jonah Tavai and Starling Thomas, the 5th. And so with my round 6 selection, I was talking about getting value in later day 3 and on day 3. Luke Schoonmaker is value in round 6 because that tight end, he's something else. He can definitely be a playmaker. He like blocking okay, but he can be a playmaker. Some other guys I consider: Ventrell Miller and Will Mallory, the tight end out of Miami, who put up a very impressive scouting combine in Indianapolis over the course of last weekend. So those were some of the other guys that I took a look at. With the other round 6 selection, I took Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the UCLA quarterback, over guys like Aubrey Miller, D. Winters, and Puka Nacua, because, I mean, again, quarterback is a pretty big issue, and we need someone to back up Sam Howell. If we take Dorian Thompson-Robinson and he becomes if we bring in a veteran quarterback and we take Dorian Thompson-Robinson as well, Thompson-Robinson will be our QB3 on the depth chart, in my opinion. I think, again, you don't know with these quarterbacks and stuff. So I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson has high upside. He's a dual threat quarterback. He ran a pretty fast 40, which was kind of overshadowed by Anthony Richardson's 40-yard dash. But overall, he ran a pretty fast 40, in my opinion. And so, I decided to take him with the later round 6 selection. And then with the round 7 selection, I took another guy that impressed me at the NFL Scouting Combine. It was Darius Davis, who ran, I believe he was the fastest out of the wide receivers. It was a 4.33, I want to say, or 4.34. So I took him with the round 7 selection over guys like Justin Shorter, the wide receiver out of Florida, or Alex Forsyth, the center or inside offensive lineman out of Oregon. So I took Joey Porter Jr., DeJuan Jones, Ivan Pace, Oluwatimi, Jacorian Bennett, Luke Schoonmaker, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Darius Davis. PFF gave me a B- on this, but again, I don't really look at the PFF grades on it because a lot of it is just really inaccurate. But overall, if this ended up being our draft class for the 2023 NFL draft, I'd be happy because it pretty much covers all of the needs that Washington has. Besides, maybe we need some more depth at the offensive line besides DeJuan Jones and Oluwatimi. But besides that, this really covered a lot of the needs that Washington has. All right, that'll be it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I'd recommend keeping track of the socials at KUTWC Pod on Twitter and also on this YouTube channel as well, because I think there's going to be an update probably during the next weekend, because I don't really know when next week's episode is going to come out, because with a negotiating period for the free agency opening on Monday at noon, a lot of it's going to change. It'll still probably come out, now that I'm thinking about it, Tuesday morning. but things might change. So definitely keep track of the socials to see if there's going to be any changes to next week's episode. But yeah, that's it. See you guys in the next one. Peace.